Dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Today we shall be discussing Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981. If we look at the scenario today, we all know that air pollution is one of the global concerns and no country is safe from this. All the countries in the globe are afflicted to varying degrees by air pollution. If we see, the Earth's natural air is composed of 78% of nitrogen, 21% molecules of oxygen, and 1% molecules of other gases like carbon dioxide, argon, etc. It also includes water vapors. But if the composition of the air is disturbed in such a manner that it becomes unfit for human beings, unfit for animals, for plants and other living organisms on this planet Earth, then the air is said to be polluted. As per the report of Greenpeace India, published in 2017, 1.2 million people are affected by diseases related to air pollution, and therefore the air pollution annually is causing deaths of 1.2 million people in this country, in India. 3% of the gross domestic product of India that is consumed in dealing with, coping with problems relating to air pollution. Therefore, we can all understand the air pollution has reached alarming proportions. If we look at the Greenpeace report of 2017, they conducted surveys of 168 cities across 24 states of India, and they found that the air of none of these cities can be said to be pure as per WHO standards. Therefore, they found that all these 168 cities in 24 states, the air was polluted. Therefore, in this background, we will be discussing Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981. If we look at the composition, the enactment of the act is enacted of late only in 1981. And as we discussed under the Water Act, there was no specific provision in the Constitution of India pertaining to air pollution or pertaining to pollution in general. It was only the impetus which was provided by the Stockholm Declaration of 1972 that the country responded to the environment pollution at the national and international level. Agreeing to abide by its commitments given at the Stockholm Declaration, India enacted Water Act of 1974, which was followed by Air Act of 1981. Today, we shall be discussing the legal provisions relating to Air Act. The learning outcomes of today's lecture will be to learn about the legal provisions concerning prevention, control and abatement of air pollution, to analyze the role, powers and functions of Central Pollution Control Board in the prevention, control and abatement of air pollution, to learn about the role, powers, functions of State Pollution Control Board regarding prevention, control and abatement of air pollution, and to analyze various acts which have been declared as offences under the Air Act and the penalties provided for those offences. The scheme of today's presentation will be, first we will be discussing the introduction to Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981. Then we will be discussing the implementation mechanism under the Act, that is the composition of state, central and state pollution control boards, their powers, their functions, their duties. Then we will be dealing with the legal provisions concerning prevention and control of air pollution. And then we will be dealing with administrative mechanism concerning appeals against the decisions of state pollution control boards. And then we will be dealing with the offences and penalties prescribed under the Act along with the procedure prescribed therefore. As stated earlier, Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981 was enacted in response to India's commitments under United Nations Conference on Human Environment held in June 1972. In order to comply with the commitments of the country under that United Nations Conference on Human Environment held at Stockholm, India enacted Constitution 42nd Amendment Act 1976. By virtue of the Constitutional Amendment Act, provisions relating to environment, they were inserted in the Constitution. Article 48A was inserted in the Constitution, which aims at striving for protection and preservation of the environment. Along with that, a fundamental duty in the shape of Article 51A, Clause G was inserted in the Constitution. Provisions relating to prevention of pollution were inserted in the concurrent list, that is list 3 of the 7th schedule of the Constitution of India. Thereafter, we find that the country enacted Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1974, which was followed by enactment of the present Air Act of 1981, that is Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981. Having seen the background of the Act, let us now see what are the objectives of the Act for which this Act has been enacted. If we analyze the Act, we find the Act has been enacted for prevention, control and abatement of air pollution, and for this purpose to establish central and state pollution control boards, to confer powers on these central and state pollution control boards, and to preserve the quality of air. As stated, the quality of air is very important for the existence of all living organisms on this planet Earth. We all know air is the gift of the nature to all living organisms, and if the proportion of various gases in the air that is disturbed, it leads to air pollution. If we look at the enactment, look at the Act, air pollution is defined as the presence of any pollutant in the air. And then the Act is defining air pollutant to mean any solid, liquid or gaseous substance, including noise. Now you see, the definition says, if there is any pollutant present in the air, which may be solid, liquid or gaseous substance, even the presence of noise in the air in excess of the tolerable limits, that has been declared to be air pollution by virtue of the amendments made in 1987. Up to 1987, presence of noise in air was not treated as air pollution, but the amendment of 1987 inserted the provision, amended the definition of air pollutant to mean that if the noise is present in the air and that noise is beyond the tolerable limits so as to cause injury to human beings or other living creatures or plants or environment, then the presence of noise shall be treated as presence of pollutant in the air, and that shall mean the air is polluted. Therefore, if we look at the definition of air pollutant again, it says air pollutant is the presence of any solid, liquid or gaseous substances in the air in such proportion, in such concentration as it may tend to or as it may cause injury to human beings, injury to animals, injury to plants or to property or to other living organisms on this planet Earth. Now, having defined what is meant by air pollution, let us see what are the implementation mechanism for the implementation of the objectives of the Act. As we discussed, one of the main objectives of the Act is to preserve the quality of air. To preserve the quality of air, various provisions have been enacted in the Air Act 1981, and for the implementation of those provisions, the Act has made provisions or made possible the establishment of Central Pollution Control Board at the central level and State Pollution Control Board under the state level, at the state level. If Central Pollution Control Board has been created, established under the Water Act, the same Central Pollution Control Board shall be dealing with the provisions of, shall be complying with or shall be implementing the provisions of Air Act also. Therefore, if we look at the Air Act, it is making a comprehensive approach. It's not that two separate Central Pollution Control Boards are to be established, one for the Air Act, one for the Water Act. If the Water Act has already been enforced by that particular state and there is or by the union and there is a Central Pollution Control Board, the same board shall discharge the functions of the Air Act also. Similarly, so far as the state board is concerned, if the state has applied, made applicable the Water Act in its state, in that case, and has constituted a state pollution control board under the Water Act, the same board shall perform the functions assigned to it under the Air Act and shall have all the powers under the Air Act. And if no such board has been constituted by the states, or if the Water Act has not been made applicable in the state and as a consequence state board has not been constituted, then Air Act mandates the state governments to establish state pollution control board for complying with the purposes of the Act. Now if we look at the functions of Central Pollution Control Board, before we deal with the functions of Central Pollution Control Board, let us remember that the Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Board both are body corporate. When we say body corporate, that means they are having their separate legal existence. They have their common seal, they have capacity to sue, capacity to be sued, they can purchase property, they can dispose of property, they can so as stated, Central and State Pollution Control Boards are deemed to be body corporate under the Act. When we say that they are body corporate under the Act, we mean that they have a separate legal entity. They can hold property, they can dispose of property, they can enter into contracts, they can sue, file a suit in a court of law, they can be sued in a court of law. So therefore they have independent legal existence. Now if we look at the functions of Central Pollution Control Board, the foremost function of Central Pollution Control Board is to preserve the quality of air so as to be fit for use by human beings and other living organisms. The main functions of the Central Pollution Control Board is to advise the union government regarding the matters concerning improvement of quality of air and regarding prevention, control and abatement of air pollution. If we see the functions of the Central Pollution Control Board, we find that the Central Pollution Control Board in India has launched National Air Quality Monitoring Program. This National Air Quality Monitoring Program was launched at 342 operating stations covering 127 cities in various states and union territories. This program has been launched for monitoring 4 air pollutants, namely sulfur dioxide, oxides of nitrogen, suspended particulate matter and respirable suspended particulate matter, so as to monitor the quality of air across the country in order to comply with its main function of advising the union government regarding the improvement of quality of air. Other functions of Central Pollution Control Board include, under the Air Act, include to plan and execute a national program for the prevention, control and abatement of air pollution, to coordinate the activities of state pollution control boards and to resolve any disputes which may arise between them, to provide technical assistance and guidance to state boards, and to sponsor research, investigation relating to problems concerning air pollution, to plan and organize training of persons associated with the prevention, control and abatement of air pollution, or those persons who are likely to be associated with the programs pertaining to prevention, control of air pollution, to organize programs through mass media campaigns for prevention, control and abatement of air pollution. As we said, that one of the chief functions of this Central Pollution Control Board is to advise the union government regarding the air quality standards and therefore also to lay down the ambient air quality standards, and for this purpose as we said, the Central Pollution Control Board has launched National Air Quality Monitoring Program. CPCB is also required to collect, compile and publish technical and statistical data relating to air pollution and the measures undertaken for prevention, control and abatement of air pollution. After compiling the data, the board is expected to disseminate the information pertaining to air pollution at all levels. Board can issue directions to an establishment or to any other authority from time to time concerning the compliance with the objectives of the Air Act and the functions assigned under the Air Act. It may be asked to perform such other functions by the appropriate government from time to time. This apart, as just like Water Act, if we see the functions of Central Pollution Control Board under Water Act and Air Act are similar. Similarly, if the state board defaults, just like Water Act, if the state board defaults in complying with the provisions of Air Act, in that case, the Central Pollution Control Board can take over the reins of the State Pollution Control Board temporarily for a specified period whenever there is an emergency, grave emergency, or whenever the State Pollution Control Board has failed to discharge its functions, and in that case it can discharge those functions of the State Board itself. As discussed, that if the Water Act has been enforced in that particular state, then there is no need for the state government to constitute a separate State Pollution Control Board. However, if the Water Act was not enforced, then the Air Act contained a provision for the constitution of, for the establishment of State Pollution Control Board. The constitution of State Pollution Control Board and the composition of State Pollution Control Board under the Air Act is similar to the composition of State Pollution Control Board under the Water Act. Just like the Water Act, under Air Act also, there is required to be a full-time or part-time chairman, and the chairman can be a person who has got specialized knowledge or experience, practical experience in administering institutions dealing with air pollution. The state government is required to nominate not more than 5 officers as official members to represent the state. State government is required to nominate not more than 5 persons from the local authorities functioning within the state. State government is required to nominate not more than 3 non-official members to represent the interests of trade, commerce, fisheries, industry, agriculture, or any other interest which the state believes is required to be represented in the State Pollution Control Board. 2 persons are required to be nominated by the state government from amongst the officers of the corporations or companies owned or controlled by the state government. In addition, 1 full-time member secretary is required to be appointed from amongst a person who is having specialized knowledge pertaining to air pollution or the management of air pollution or the other aspects, technical aspects of air pollution. Out of the members of the board, at least 2 members must have special knowledge or practical experience relating to improvement of air pollution, improvement of quality of air, or matters pertaining to prevention, control and abatement of air pollution. Just like the Water Act, the tenure of members of State Pollution Control Board is 3 years. However, they can resign earlier by putting in their resignations. They can be removed if they do not attend 3 consecutive meetings. They can be removed. They shall cease to be the members, but then before removing a member, he has to be given a reasonable opportunity of being heard. Those members who are members of the board by virtue of their being officers of a corporation or a company, or being the official members representing the state, they shall cease to be the members of the State Pollution Control Board as soon as they cease to be the officers of that company, or as soon as they cease to be the officers of the state government. As we said, that absence of 3 consecutive meetings will lead to vacation of their office. However, if the absence is on account of a reasonable cause. In that case, their office shall not be deemed to have been vacated. However, if the absence is without a reasonable cause from 3 consecutive meetings, they shall be deemed to have vacated their offices. Any person who was member of the State Pollution Control Board and who has retired therefrom is eligible for renomination as a member of State Pollution Control Board. The Act also prescribes certain disqualifications for being appointed as a member. If any person suffers from these disqualifications, he is not eligible to be appointed as a member of the State Pollution Control Board. And if an existing member of the State Pollution Control Board suffers these disqualifications, he is liable to be removed from the membership of State Pollution Control Board. The disqualifications are: he is declared as an insolvent, he is declared as a person of unsound mind, or he has been convicted of offences involving moral turpitude, or he has been convicted of any offence under the Air Act, or he has any economic interest in the capacity of being a member, partner, or having share in the company which is manufacturing air quality control equipments, or who is a member, partner, or shareholder in a company, having substantial share in a company or firm which is manufacturing industrial plant, etc., for the improvement of quality of air. Similarly, if a member is having economic interest in the capacity of being a director, secretary, manager, or salaried employee of a company or of a firm which is having contract with the government or government instrumentalities regarding improvement of quality of air, prevention and control of air pollution, or any person who has abused his position as a member. So in these cases, the member shall suffer from the disqualifications, and if he is a member of the board, he is liable to be removed. However, before removing a person as member of SPCB, he is required to be given a reasonable opportunity of being heard. Now we look at the meetings. As we said, we have State Pollution Control Board at the state level. This State Pollution Control Board and the Central Pollution Control Board, they are required to have their meetings, quarterly meetings. At least one meeting in every 3 months is required to be there, so that they can meet as early as possible and discuss the progress in the matter. Whenever there is an emergency, the chairman is entitled to call an urgent meeting of the board. Now let us have a look at the functions of State Pollution Control Board under the Air Act. Functions of the State Pollution Control Board under the Air Act are also similar to functions of the State Pollution Control Board under the Water Act. So therefore, having a cursory look at the function shows that their function are to collect and disseminate information pertaining to air pollution, to advise, to plan the documents pertaining to prevention, control and abatement of air pollution, to make programs for the purpose, to advise the state government on these matters pertaining to air pollution, to inspect air quality control equipments, to inspect the plants which are manufacturing these equipments, and to issue appropriate directions to these plants regarding prevention, control and abatement of air pollution, to collaborate with the Central Pollution Control Board in organizing training of persons engaged in connection with prevention, control and abatement of air pollution. One of the functions of the State Pollution Control Board is to recognize and declare air quality control areas, and for the purpose, the State Pollution Control Board can inspect air pollution control areas, assess the quality of air in those areas, and it can take steps for the prevention, control and abatement of air pollution. This apart, State Pollution Control Board is to lay down ambient air quality standards. These are to be laid down in consultation with the Central Pollution Control Board and in accordance with the air quality standards prescribed by the Central Pollution Control Boards. These standards can be laid down regarding emission of air pollutants into the air, into the atmosphere by industrial plants, as well as by vehicles. If we look at Motor Vehicles Act, under the Air Act, the State Pollution Control Board can direct the authorities under the Motor Vehicles Act to ensure compliance with the emission standards. Emission from vehicles. We all know that emission from vehicles is also one of the causes of air pollution. The State Pollution Control Board, as we just discussed, is required to identify the air pollution control areas, and if any industry is likely to cause air pollution or is likely to emit in air pollutants, in that case the State Pollution Control Board can advise the state government regarding the location of such industries which are likely to emit pollutants in the air or which are likely to cause air pollution. This apart, any other function can be required to be performed, it can be mandated to perform any other function by the state governments from time to time. As we discussed, that if the State Pollution Control Board is not performing its functions properly under the Air Act, then it can be superseded. If the default is persistent, or if they are not complying with the provisions of the Act, then it can be superseded for a period of 6 months. It can be superseded in public interest. This period of 6 months can be extended from time to time if the government is of the opinion that the SPCB is not complying with the provisions of the Act. Having seen the implementation mechanism, let us now have a look at the provisions pertaining to prevention and control of air pollution under the Air Act. As we discussed, one of the chief functions of the State Pollution Control Board under the Air Act is to determine air quality standards in consultation with the Central Pollution Control Board, and in that context to monitor the quality of air. And therefore, if the quality of air is likely to be polluted or is already polluted, in that context the SPCB can declare certain areas within the state as air pollution control areas where the provisions of the Act shall be made applicable. In those air pollution control areas, the SPCB can prohibit the use of certain types of fuel. It can prohibit that certain types of fuel shall not be used, those fuels which are likely to cause or which are causing air pollution. It can ban the use of those fuels. It can prescribe air pollution control equipments for use in premises which are established in air pollution control areas. It can prescribe and it can also approve certain air quality control equipments for use in the premises situated in the air pollution control areas. The SPCB has the power and the duty to prohibit burning of any material which is likely to cause air pollution in the air pollution control area. It is required to fix emission standards in case of motor vehicles. SPCB can also prohibit any industrial plant from discharging air pollutants in excess of the prescribed standards in air. Just like the Water Act, under the Air Act also, any organization, when it is going to establish an industrial unit, an industrial plant in the air pollution control area, it is required to obtain previous consent of the State Pollution Control Board. When the State Pollution Control Board is granting consent for the establishment of an industry, it can impose certain conditions like that organization would install approved quality control air control equipments, or they will keep those equipments always in running position, working condition at all times. Conditions like to replace those control equipments as per the standards and prescriptions of State Pollution Control Board. It can also impose conditions like erection of chimneys, installation of chimneys, and such other conditions as may be required for the prevention and control of air pollution. Not only the new industrial units are required to obtain the consent of the State Pollution Control Board, even the existing plants are required to apply for consent within 3 months from the date of coming into force of the Act. The Act came into force in May 1981. Within 3 months of the coming into force of this Act, the existing establishments were required to apply for consent of the State Pollution Control Board for continuing their operations. If they filed their application within 3 months, they were entitled to continue their operations. The State Pollution Control Board had the power. It has the power even now. It can refuse the consent, it can allow the consent. While allowing the consent, giving the consent, it can impose conditions as we discussed. And it can also prescribe the appliances and approve the appliances which are to be used in the premises which are situated in air pollution control areas. This apart, Air Act has also fixed liability of person who is in charge of the premises to inform the State Pollution Control Board about excessive discharges of pollutants in air which are caused by accident or any unforeseen circumstances. So since it is the duty of the State Pollution Control Board under the Air Act also to take corrective measures whenever there is an emergency or whenever due to accident or other unforeseen circumstances, there is emission of pollutants in excess of the prescribed standards. Just like the Water Act, there is a provision in the Air Act also that the SPCB can approach the court when there is emission of air pollutants into the atmosphere in excess of the standards prescribed by the State Pollution Control Board. It can, when there is a likelihood of the same, SPCB can file an injunction petition under the civil law before a civil court and can obtain the injunction prohibitory order prohibiting that industry, that organization from discharging pollutants in air in excess of the prescribed standards. Just like the Water Act, under the Air Act also, SPCB has the power to call for the information and accordingly to issue directions to the organization, to the industrial plant which is operating in air pollution control areas. SPCB has also the power of entry and inspection. SPCB can authorize any person or any officer of the board to enter upon the premises of any plant at all reasonable hours for various purposes, including to verify whether the provisions of the Act have been complied with, to find out whether the functions of the board under the Air Act are properly performed, for testing the quality of air, for testing the control equipments, industrial plants, records, registers, etc., and for conducting search of any place where it is believed that an offence under the Act has been committed or is likely to be committed. And in such a case, SPCB can also order and it can itself seize documents, registers, records or any other equipment or incriminatory matter which it believes can be used as an evidence in a matter before a court of law. State Pollution Control Board can also take samples of air. As we discussed, that the Central Pollution Control Board is required to lay down national air quality standards and the standards as to the emission of pollutants into the air. So to find out whether the pollution levels have exceeded the permissible limits, SPCB has the power to take the samples of air. The procedure for taking the samples is similar as is under the Water Act. The officer is required to serve a notice upon the occupier or the agent of the occupier. Then the sample is to be taken in the presence of the occupier and or the agent of the occupier, as the case may be. Container is required to be signed, marked, signed and sealed. It is required to be signed both by the occupier or his agent as well as by the officer who has taken the sample. Sample is required to be sent to the board laboratory. But if the occupier or his agent has made a request, then the sample will be sent to state air laboratory, not to board laboratory. Where the occupier or his agent refuses to sign the container which has the sample, or he absents himself, in such a case, the officer is required to inform the government analyst in this regard, and the sample is required to be sent to the state air laboratory. A report of the sample is required to be sent to the State Pollution Control Board in triplicate. One is required to be sent by the board to the occupier of that plant or establishment. One is to be kept in the record of the State Pollution Control Board, and one is required if later on that is needed for the purposes of the court. If anybody is aggrieved by the decision of the State Pollution Control Board regarding grant of permission, consent, or refusal to grant consent under the Air Act, he can file an appeal before the first appellate authority. The first appellate authority is required to be constituted by the state government. It may be single member or 3-member authority. The appeal can be filed within 30 days of the date of order complained against. But if there is a delay due to a reasonable cause, if the delay can be explained and there is a reasonable cause for the same, then the period of 30 days can be extended. The appellate authority is required to dispose of the appeal as early as possible, as expeditiously as possible. After the enactment of National Green Tribunal Act, National Green Tribunal NGT has been constituted in the country. Second appeal, that is appeal against the order of the first appellate authority, lies before the NGT. Now, having analyzed the provisions of the Act regarding the pollution, the prevention and control of air pollution, let us have a look at some important cases. Now, if we look at this Vardhaman Kaushik versus Union of India, now this case is decided by the NGT in 2016, just after the Diwali of 2016. A petition was filed against deteriorating air quality in Delhi, particularly, as I said, immediately after Diwali, the 1 week after Diwali. We all know that in 2014, the Apex Court has issued guidelines, 2015, NGT has issued guidelines regarding the worsening air condition in the National Capital Territory of Delhi and the suffocating air, wherein the courts have called to take up emergency measures. However, the position did not improve. After 2016 Diwali, the air quality had worsened to such an extent that NGT called that it is an environmental emergency. And the NGT observed that it is the constitutional duty of the state to protect and preserve the environment and the quality of air. It immediately ordered temporary stoppage of construction activities, demolition work, shutting down of power generation plants, hot mix plants, stone crushers and units, etc., whenever there is an environmental emergency. The NGT ordered that whenever you find that a situation has arisen which can be termed as environmental emergency, automatic measures like shutting down of power generation plants or hot mix plants or stone crusher units, and even the construction and demolition activities be done immediately as a temporary measure. NGT even ordered sprinkling of water by helicopter to deal with worst case scenario. Similarly, if we look at Vikrant Kumar Tongad versus Environment Pollution Authority 2015, now it was a petition filed against burning of crop residue in National Capital Territory and surrounding states, that is Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan and UP. We all understand that burning of crop residue or stubble burning is one of the causes of air pollution, and it causes deep air pollution, especially in the National Capital Territory, because the crop residues are burnt in adjoining states like Punjab, Haryana, Uttarakhand, UP and Rajasthan. Taking note of this situation, NGT banned crop residue burning in NCT and surrounding areas, and it also prescribed in its judgment punitive measures. If anybody is found to violate the orders of NGT, NGT orders punitive measures to be taken against them. National Green Tribunal ordered State of Punjab to educate the farmers and to take steps to stop this menace. It also asked the state to make provisions for collection and dispersal of crop residue and to provide technology to the farmers, to educate the farmers, so that the menace of crop residue burning can be dealt with. District magistrates were made duty bound to monitor that there is no crop residue burning in these states. If we look at MC Mehta versus Union of India 2016 again, this was a public interest litigation again filed in the Supreme Court of India regarding worsening air pollution, worsening air quality in the NCT. The Supreme Court took note of the worsening air quality in the National Capital Territory of Delhi, and it ordered diversion of heavy duty commercial vehicles which are not bound for Delhi. The court even levied environment compensation cess of 700 and 1300 rupees on vehicles entering Delhi, commercial vehicles entering Delhi. The court ordered that those heavy commercial vehicles which are not bound for Delhi should be diverted and they should not be allowed to enter Delhi even on payment of environmental compensation charge. The court ordered that diesel vehicles registered prior to 2005, registered before 2005, they should not be allowed to enter Delhi. That means all diesel vehicles up to 2005, registered up to 2005, were banned from entering Delhi. The taxis like Ola cabs or Uber cabs, they were also ordered to be shifted to CNG. Therefore, we see that the courts have been very keen in preserving the quality of air, and they have adopted a proactive approach to deal with the worsening air quality. Now let us come to the offences and penalties prescribed under the Act. Various offences, various acts have been declared as offences under the Act, including failure to obtain consent of the State Pollution Control Board before establishing an industrial plant. As we discussed, that before any industrial plant is to be established, the consent of the state board is required to be obtained. If anybody fails to obtain that, that has been declared as an offence. Already existing plants are also required to obtain the consent of SPCB, and if they fail to apply within 3 months from the date of coming into force of the Air Act, then that has also been declared as an offence. If anybody emits in air pollutants in excess of the prescribed limits, or anybody violates the directions of State Pollution Control Board, it has been declared to be an offence for which a mandatory punishment for a term which shall not be less than 1.5 years has been prescribed. Minimum mandatory punishment of 1.5 years, which can extend up to 6 years, along with fine, has been prescribed for these offences. And if anybody commits these offences again, or the offences are of continuing nature, these offences continue, in that case, additional fine of rupees 5,000 per day for every day during which that offence continues after the first conviction has been provided for in the Act. And if that violation continues for more than 1 year, then enhanced punishment has been prescribed under the Act. Certain minor offences have also been prescribed under the Act. If anybody destroys the property of the State Pollution Control Board, or any notice put up by the State Pollution Control Board, or defaces any pillar, any post, or removes any property, injures any property of the State Pollution Control Board, that is an offence. Similarly, obstructing any person in the performance of its duties entrusted by the State Board, that is also an offence. All these offences enlisted on this slide, they are punishable with imprisonment which can extend up to 3 months, or with a fine which can extend up to 10,000 rupees, or both. That means both punishment of imprisonment and fine can be levied by the court for all these offences, including damaging any property belonging to the board, failure to furnish the information. As we discussed, SPCB can call for the information. If the information is not furnished, that is also an offence. Failure to intimate the board whenever there is an accident or unforeseen circumstance due to which there is emission of air pollutants in excess of the prescribed limits. If anybody makes a false statement or contravention of any other provision of the Act for which no penalty has been prescribed. Just like the Water Act, this Air Act also prescribes for, makes provisions regarding offences committed by the companies. In this case, the Air Act prescribes that the offences, if offences committed by the company, any person who was in charge of the company at the time when the offence was committed, he shall be deemed to have committed the offence along with the company. That means not only the company would be liable, But the person who was in charge of the company at the time when the offense was committed, he is also deemed to have committed the offense. Since the company cannot be given punishment of imprisonment, therefore the punishment of imprisonment can be given to the person in charge of the company at that time. Similarly, any person who was manager, director, secretary of the company, if it can be shown that the offense has been committed with his knowledge, with his connivance, with his consent, then that person is also liable for the offense and he shall be deemed to have committed the offense. But if these persons can satisfy the court that these offenses have been committed without their knowledge and they had taken reasonable steps for the prevention of these offenses, in that case, they shall not be guilty of these offenses. Similar provisions have been made for offenses by government departments. Having studied the Air Act, we have seen that the judiciary has been alive to the growing menace of air pollution in the country. The pollution had exceeded the tolerance limits, and as we mentioned, as per the report of Greenpeace India 2017, in all 168 stations which they monitored in 24 states, air in any of those stations was not clean, was not pure as per WHO standards, and hence that underlines the need for the implementation of the Act. Though the Act is laudable and the court has been alive and has been proactive in the implementation of the Act, yet the Act has not been implemented in letter and spirit. So dear students, today we have discussed the provisions of the Act. We have discussed pre-constitutional provisions. We have also discussed the amendments made to the Constitution, the aims and objectives of the Act, the powers, functions and role played by Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Board, and the provisions pertaining to prevention and control of air pollution, the liabilities of the occupier or the agent of the occupier and all other persons under the Act. We have also discussed various offences prescribed under the Act. Thank you.